Thank you, Mark. I'd like to correct one thing you said. You said a leader who understands sustainability. Just looking around here today at some of the exhibits, I would say that, no, I don't really understand it yet. I'm not sure that anybody really understands it yet. It is so much a concept that is still being created as we go along, a concept that we are co-inventing as we are doing the work. And I think with every year, with every step we take, we learn more about what it means to take sustainability seriously. How many of the aspects of our life would and could and perhaps should be different than they are now. This is not just something that you can, read a book or read a couple of the pamphlets and then say, okay, I got it. I'll try to bike more and, eat lower on the food chain and use compostable forks. That's only scratching the surface. We don't really realize how much of our life, of course, on an ongoing basis has been shaped by a carbon economy, and how long it will take us to readjust ourselves. And to some extent, it may well be a process that really can never be finished, and that truly is a shared journey that we're on. And I think that's what makes it so fun and exciting. Because if it were just about, okay, guys, here are the standards, here are the measures, it's sort of like saying you got to stop smoking or whatever, or you got to wear a seatbelt. Those are sort of command and control things that you can do, and it involves a certain amount of behavioral modification, and you can get there. No, this is very different. This is an intellectual journey, a moral journey, a spiritual journey, and nobody really understands it yet. So that's what makes me excited. Now, the other part that makes me excited is I've had occasion now in a couple of different places, in a couple of different countries, to talk about the American college and university president's climate commitment that we're here to really sign today. That's one big part of what we're celebrating today. And, at one level, that commitment is something that by now 685 universities and college presidents agreed to analyze their carbon footprint of their institutions and figure out how to do better. But at another level, to me, it is actually an absolutely amazing example of American grassroots democracy at work. I don't think there is another country in the world where you could get this big, this major an effort coming from the grassroots, coming without a government mandate. There is no way in the world that European universities would do something like this unless they were forced to by their governments. To get universities to voluntarily agree to do this, to voluntarily devote millions of man hours, mostly woman hours actually, in our case, so much effort to figure out where we're at, to figure out how we can improve, and in doing so, beginning to steer what will be billions of dollars of investment and operational expenditures in a different way, and to do all that without having a federal law or state law forcing us to do this. It's truly an example of how grassroots democracy can be an amazing force for change, and then can become really an example across the world. Just 4 weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. with a group of 15 university presidents talking about a next step being cooked up by Second Nature, the group that first came up with this idea of the president's climate commitment. And it was to get university presidents to talk about the reauthorization of the National Transportation Act, which is probably one of the biggest pieces of legislation in terms of the amount of money it controls, because that is all the money that's used for building highways. It's what all the gas tax that you pay goes into, and it's what most of the public funding for public transportation comes from. And we were talking about how can we, as institutions of higher education, pressure the federal government to say that bill that will be reauthorized next year and that will again steer tens, possibly billions of dollars of transportation spending over the next 6-7 years. how can we use that not just to promote mobility, which is traditionally its goal, promote national security, which is really the original purpose of the National Highway Act, but also to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Make that an explicit goal of transportation planning. Now think about when that becomes a criterion for transportation planning, how it will change what we do on an ongoing basis. So it's another example of using our strength as higher education with a certain amount of intellectual and moral leadership that we can provide to make a major change in how this country goes about its planning and its expenditures. As you know, we have been preparing our climate plan, which includes a pledge to track our emissions and then create a plan to reduce them. Our goal is carbon neutrality by 2040. Now, the nice thing when you're in the university business, a goal that is set in 2040 is pretty safe, right? Because, heck, I'll be lucky to be alive. You'd be very unlucky if I were still the president at that point. So, you know, hey, I'm just committing my successor a couple steps down. So wisely, there are some target steps along the way. It includes reducing energy demand 25% below the 2000 levels by 2030 through conservation. To reducing solid waste generation on campus 25% below 2008 levels by 2030. To reduce the share of drive-alone trips to 15% of commuting trips made to the PSU campus. And I gotta tell you guys, how much pleasure I get at any of these national meetings that I go to when I brag about the percentage of students, faculty, and staff who use a private automobile to come to campus. I mean, we beat everybody except, you know, maybe the people who live on a strictly residential campus somewhere way out in the country, you know, and nobody goes anywhere. But for any urban campus, forget it. I think I have mentioned to some of you that, you know, our percentage of people that come by something other than private automobile is 65%. At another urban campus where I was before, it was 6%. So we are an order of magnitude better. That is just an amazing achievement. So we also agree in this plan to maintain the 2010 level for travel emissions, even as we grow, as we will over the next few decades. We also, of course, talk about establishing a global excellence in research, teaching, and partnerships around urban sustainability, urban and rural connections, to implement the university eco-district. And at least one of the projects dealt with the eco-district here, creating sort of a neighborhood scale model for implementation. To help develop the Oregon Sustainability Center as a very physical and visible symbol of moving towards a net zero economy. And to support the climate action goals of the city, the metropolitan area, the county, the state, and so on. The creativity that's visible in the poster boards that are up here just is so critical to helping us figure out all the ways in which we can succeed. This is not something that can be done by, you know, administrators sitting in a room and thinking about everything. This can only be done by people who live the life, who see all the things that are going on in this institution on the day-to-day basis, coming up with it, including, you know, volunteer efforts like collecting used clothing to recycle it. He's paying me to do a little plug for that project. But you know, it's simple things, but it's also things that on an ongoing basis, you know, the hydration stations, how we do our roofs, to finding new ways to handle our lighting so that we're doing it on an ongoing basis, and we're not dependent on volunteers doing this day after day. So these are the kind of activities, both the creativity that you see there, the specific plans that are reflected in the Climate Action Plan, that we need to keep working on, not because we think we're going to sort of get it and be done, but because those are the day-to-day marks of success, the year-to-year marks of success, as we collectively engage in this journey of discovering what sustainability really means. And I want to have you join me in a round of applause for all the people who've been working on this, including almost everybody here in this room. We're now going to have the formal signing ceremony. Who's in charge of the formal signing ceremony? Noel, I think. And then I'll come back to the podium to have some more remarks, and then we'll move on with the program from there. And I want to show you, I don't know whether you can see it from a distance, but to sign the plan, I have this wonderful, absolutely corny pen that lights up green when you push it. Is that cool or what? All right.